Let's talk repressed memories. Rolling up my sleeves. Just had to pause, had a whole little coughing fit. Had to reassure my inner children that I'm here for this, to have these conversations, and that they're safe and that I'll protect them and be with them whatever comes up. So first, I'm going to answer some questions that I got about repressed memories, and then I'm going to go into a bit of my story and other things that I feel to say and share about repressed memories. If you want to know more about repressed memories from the kind of sciencey perspective and what is happening and what goes on with memory, I recommend this book. It is Trauma and Memory, Brain and Body in a Search for the Living Past, a practical guide for understanding and working with traumatic memory. And that is Peter Levine. So I don't want to get too much into the kind of science of things. What I really want to talk about here is the culture around memory that we have and the stuff about repressed memories and what happens if you Google about repressed memories. I really recommend, if you do want to go down kind of a rabbit hole of repressed memories, Google does not have great results. There's a lot of history around repressed memories and legal stuff, and there's a lot of stuff there. So if you want what my recommendation to understand all the stuff that is there is this book, because Peter Levine goes into some of that history of repressed memories and the issues with implanting false memories and all the satanic panic stuff from the 80s. And a lot of people, there is stuff out there that says that repressed memories are false, which can be a really tricky thing to come across as a survivor or as someone who is trying to face and battle and understand and work with their own memory. I also just want to mention our societal emphasis on memory and remembering and truth and facts and proof. Okay, so in our, I can feel the part of me that's like, burn it all down. So there's a big emphasis in our society around clarity and facts and evidence and all that stuff. When it comes to you and your body and your truth and your experience and your pain, you have the wisdom. You have the answers. You are your own best healer and knower. And I don't care what anyone has to say besides what your body is saying, what your heart is saying, and what is real and true for you. So in exploring with this kind of stuff, it's really useful if you feel called to have a safe space to look at this kind of stuff. I also want to talk about how normal it is to not remember things. So often for those of us who have had repressed memories and people that don't remember their childhoods a lot, it's quite normal to not remember all of the details, right? And it's quite normal for people who haven't had severe trauma to not remember things and then to have them come up later. So for example, with my toddler, my husband and I both have memories come up regularly that are sometimes traumatic, sometimes not so much, but just things that we didn't really, we couldn't have just called to the forefront of our mind until we saw something happen with our toddler and in his development that reminded us of what our experiences were like growing up. So it's not this crazy thing to have memories and new things come up and come into the present. One of the questions I got was, I'm always wondering if I'm repressing something. Will they only appear if I'm ready to remember? Do they always reveal themselves? So there's no always. And there is a sense of, and conversations around being ready to remember. Oftentimes people don't ever feel ready. I know when I have a new memory come up, and in the beginning I never felt like ready, but also in some sense I was. But I will say that, like I said, having safe space and having someone you have that safety and relationship with to explore these things is probably like the most likely way that to begin this exploration of if there is something there to explore. So perhaps if you do want to explore this, maybe just finding a safe enough place for yourself in nature, or in your house if you feel safe there, and just taking a moment to tune in. Is there something that is here for me to explore from my past that that I don't yet know about? And then maybe just breathing into the body and asking your intuition, asking your gut, is there something? Maybe noticing then, what am I feeling? Am I feeling scared? Maybe asking, is there an inner child part of me here who has something to say? Now, for me, I do have capacity to explore these kind of questions on my own, and I much prefer to explore them in a held space, because I think that we deserve to be supported and seen and held in our healing, and that it's useful to be able to have those skills in our everyday life to be able to explore things when they come up. It's one of the things that I love about my work, is that through doing the kind of experiential healing process work that I do, when you leave the session, you have the idea and the tools of how to unfold this kind of stuff for yourself as well. Your journey with your memories and your truth and the pain that you hold in your body and the parts of yourself that you may have closed off from is your journey. And there's no expert outside of you who can tell you what is true or not for you. Sometimes that can be really hard and really upsetting. I would love for someone to be able to say, well, at least some parts of me would love for someone to be able to say, 100% stamp, we found a video and records and it's absolutely true. It's 100% true. I don't have that. And I'm never going to have that. And there are parts of me that are so intensely not wanting to look, who for a long time, for my whole childhood and teenage years, had to avoid looking. And so those parts are still not sure. And I've had to work with and have a journey around perhaps living my life with parts of me that never know, the parts of me that are never sure if any of it happened, the parts of me that say that I'm a liar and I've made all this stuff up and I'm just here to get attention and all of those things. Those parts of me are real and true, and they kept me safe for a really long time. And there are other parts of me that know what else is true, and that know about all the memories that I've had come up in the past few years, that know about the things that I knew even when I didn't know about the physical sexual abuse. You know, so it's a journey around all these parts and all the unknowns and the confusion and the feeling lost, and it's not an easy journey. So if you're on that journey and you've had anything like this come up, then I just want you to know that I wish I could give you some concrete, comfortable, step-by-step, here's the way, but I actually don't believe that would be the best thing anyway. And what I do believe is that there is a way for you. There's a way through, and that if you feel called to begin to look or heal or explore, that I believe in you, and that I believe that it's possible, and that there are people that are out there that can help and support you. Maybe it's me, maybe it's someone else, maybe it's a little spot in nature that you find that you go to every week. You know, I'm really passionate about decolonizing healing and decolonizing therapy and breaking down a lot of the barriers that are in the way for a lot of people around healing. And so it doesn't have to be that your safe space is a healer or a therapist or anything like that. Your safe space could be a friend. It could be a spirit guide. It could be drumming journeys. It could be finding a spot in nature where you feel safe to explore and unfold things. I do find for myself that having someone to regularly look at my stuff with and explore my stuff with is invaluable. So I have someone I work with who I wouldn't call a therapist, healer, mentor is often what I say. But having that space where I know that I can unfold and unpack stuff, and also going to workshops that I've found incredibly useful. Happy to share that information with people as well. And doing my own in-person workshops soon too. And building an intentional community built on healing and all this kind of stuff, where we will be having an abundance of space to heal all the things. And when I was 17, I watched a movie and woke up the next day with a memory of sexual abuse between me and another child. And I was very confused because I was like, I think that happened, but if you'd asked me yesterday to tell you about it, I would have had I didn't remember yesterday. And now I'm like, oh yeah, that thing. And it just kind of came up out of nowhere. The thing about this memory is that it was provable in a way, because my sister remembered, and my mom and dad were like, well, I think that rings a bell, because I had told them about it at the time. And I was able to know in some way that memory was true, and that can be a thing that a lot of people battle with, because if we've had to shut down parts of our memory, there's often a big part of us, and there's been a big part in me that says, no, none of that happened. Everything was fine. None of that is real. We're not looking at that. Put that over there. That didn't happen. Everything was great. My parents are the best. It was all fine. They love me so much. I had a really privileged childhood. There's a really strong part of me that was developed to keep those memories out of the picture, right? And to keep me safe. And that part often comes up when we begin to explore with this stuff. And so for me, having this memory that was, provable in this way, is probably why that was my first memory. So after that happened, after I had that memory come up, I immediately got vaginismus and vulvodynia. I had extreme pain and a lot of muscular tension and closure going on. It took me probably a year or two before I had any idea what vaginismus and vulvodynia were, and I just thought, I remember this thing and my body has broken. The other thing that started happening is I started to have flashbacks of father-daughter incest. At the time, I could not accept that these were flashbacks. I was so confused as to what was happening to me, and I didn't have space to process or fully explore what was real and true for me around this. I did start going to therapy at the time because of all the things that were coming up, but I was still terrified to even say to my therapist, this is a thing that is coming up, and I thought that something was wrong with me. I thought that I was having intrusive thoughts. I ended up developing a story where I was like, maybe the movie I watched, I ended up getting really mixed up and confused, and that kind of implanted this false memory, and I'm just having these intrusive thoughts and something's wrong with me. I also thought maybe I wanted it, and maybe this was some fantasy of mine that I was playing out and there was something wrong with me in that way. I was also having a lot of dreams and nightmares about the incest, and I couldn't accept or even fathom that they might have happened. And I was saying then, after a couple years of therapy and realizing and really accepting all the ways that my father was psychologically sexually abusive, I used to say that my father was psychologically sexually abusive, but that nothing physical ever happened. And I was very adamant that nothing physical ever happened. So it took me about maybe 5 years into my healing journey to be able to accept that they were real memories. So I was working with a therapist who I worked with for quite a while, building safety and trust with. And then in an EMDR session in her office, I had a memory come up, and it was the first time that I was able to accept that that was a memory that was coming up. So and maybe the exploration for now looks like, I'm in this thing where I'm wondering, am I repressing something? Is there something that I'm not realizing? And then checking in, how do I feel in my body when this comes up? Maybe there's a fear. Maybe there's confusion, curiosity, whatever it is, just beginning to notice what it feels like in your body and what emotions arise when you begin to wonder about memories. Another question I got was, how do you know if it's a repressed memory or a past life visitation or a dream? The answer is, this is your journey. And I believe that anything that's coming up, whether it is a past life visitation or a dream or a memory from childhood, from this lifetime, that it's worth exploring if you feel to, and that it can be really useful and healing and life-changing to explore these things. And it can also be really painful. So with this, it could be an exploration of, like I said, having the held space to explore with someone who can help you unpack that thing. And for me, it's really about the body, because we know that the body remembers what the mind doesn't. The mind isn't really designed to hold on to all of these things, but the body keeps the score, if you will. So noticing what happens in your body after the dream, when you think about the dream, what comes up, and noticing what emotions arise and those kind of things. So then if you go into like an emotional expression practice, maybe you notice that there's a deep sadness that comes up when you think about this thing, and you begin to just, with your body and sound, and you just begin to express some of the sadness. That can be a way to begin to explore what is there and what feels real and true for you. Also to notice if there are parts of you that are, maybe saying, no, this is not real, don't look at this is not safe, or you're just making this up, or this is just from a past life. If there are any kind of strong parts coming up with that kind of a thing going on, maybe talking to those parts and asking for a bit of space to explore. That's the kind of work that I do as well. Another one was just talking about resistance and avoidance coming up, fear of what is coming up, and how to trust and heal. So the journey of working with repressed memories is a big journey of trust and healing, should you choose to go down that route. And it can be hard to find practitioners and people that feel helpful and safe, and that feels safe to build that trust with as well. And yeah, for me, it's always a practice of what gets in the way becomes the way. So if resistance and avoidance are what come up, they become the way. So first we work with the resistance and the avoidance. Hey, what are you doing here, resistance? How are you helping in this way? What's the resistance saying? Is it saying, this isn't safe, don't look, why are you thinking about this is stupid, repressed memories are bullshit, whatever it is, noticing what that voice of the resistance is. And then seeing maybe how long that voice has been in your life for, asking. And this is the kind of process work, again, that can be done on your own once you have the kind of questions and tools of doing it. And for me, that is most accessible. It's most, there's an ease and flow that comes when I'm in a held space that is different to when I'm on my own. Nature is the next best thing, maybe not the next, like I love them both. I love having space held by someone I trust, and I also love unfolding these kind of processes in nature. And if you do want to unfold like resistance, let's say in nature, maybe you go to, a forest or the beach, somewhere you feel comfortable enough to be able to make some noise and show some emotion. So like a crowded beach is probably not the place, but maybe it begins with, all right, where do I feel the resistance in my body? And then noticing that and allowing yourself to make some voice sounds and movement with that. Okay, so the resistance feels like this, maybe. And allowing that to go and continuing to kind of explore with it and notice when something shifts. So if you all of a sudden hear another sound coming in, or you see something that kind of catches your eye or whatever, kind of continuing to unfold and explore and process what's coming up. Learning about how to process those parts of yourself and work with them instead of against them. Because when we resist our resistance, or we try and say, oh, resistance, you're dumb and get away, then often these parts come back in stronger because they're really just trying to protect us, which is really important if we feel like we have repressed memory stuff. Somebody else said, I feel like there is something in my past that I can feel the result of, but can't find the memory. Okay, so there can be a really deep desire to know and to have the memory. A few things here. One, you can have the memory and still not know. Like I mentioned earlier, there are all sorts of times when, even though I have plenty of memories of the abuse, that I still don't know necessarily, or I feel uncertain about it. And also, if you feel the result of it, if you feel the impact of something and you can tell you have something around something, there's some kind of trigger for you, or there's something happening in your body, then that's the way forward. So it's not about pushing that, the result or the impact of whatever's coming up. It's not about pushing that to the side to find the memory. It's about holding and working with and unfolding and allowing space for the impact, the feelings in the body, and those things. And then from there, a memory might come, it might not. There's no way to go searching for memories. EMDR is one of the common therapy recommendations for people that have repressed memories and complex trauma. I've done quite a bit of EMDR. Happy to chat to anyone if they want to. It's not currently my preferred way of healing for myself by any means, but I think that it can be useful, and that every practitioner is totally different, even in the way that they practice EMDR, and that mostly it's about safety and trust more than any modality. And another one was, how do you handle it if anybody questions the validity of the memory? First, I just want to say that can be really hard and confusing and scary and uncomfortable and can bring up all sorts of things. So I just want to acknowledge that. And that often, if we have repressed memories, we have our own parts that aren't sure. And so this can bring up those parts as well. So that all is worthy of being seen and held and heard. And it may be that there is an inner child part that comes up that is wanting to be seen and heard and validated by this person, but that the person is refusing to do it. And we can't change that. And so it may be that wounded child part is really sad and distraught and confused about why they're not, why they're questioning it. And it can be important to enter into these conversations with other people, especially other people that may be involved in any of the memories, as the adult and holding the inner child. So if you do choose to have these conversations with others, even friends and stuff, people can say really shocking and unthoughtful things about repressed memories, because often they don't understand, and it can bring up a lot of people's own stuff as well. And you also could be talking to someone who has their own repressed memories and isn't aware of it. And so you talking about repressed memories may bring up all sorts of stuff for them. And so it can be useful to take a moment to check in with your inner children, and particularly if it's a memory from childhood, if it's a memory of when you were 12, checking in with that 12-year-old, and making sure that it's the adult that is the one driving the bus when you have that conversation. So it could be that the child is actually the one who really wants to have the conversation and be seen and heard, and you can choose to go into that conversation, but knowing that, okay, I hear that you really want to do this, and I'm willing to. I want to see, what happens, or I want to talk to my friends about this or whatever. And I want you to know that I believe you no matter what. No matter what anyone says, I'm going to be here with you on this journey. And if you feel really sad or angry or confused, and something comes up, then that's okay. And I will hold you through it. And if that's not something that you feel you can commit to as adult you, then it may be important to wait a bit to have that conversation, and to build that trust with that child before walking into kind of a danger zone with other people. And I have put myself in plenty of danger zone conversations. I have in the past disclosed quite a lot without checking in with myself. And upon first meeting someone, especially when I was first facing all of this, I was just really grappling with how do I be in the world with this that's true for me? And so I was just kind of offering it up to people to just see are you safe? Are you not? Is this, how's this gonna go? And it wasn't always safe. And sometimes it was, the responses weren't good. And so also I'll say that having connections with people who understand is really, really, really fucking valuable. And having connections with people that you can talk to about repressed memory stuff, and who will know and understand and won't try and fix it for you or figure out did you, a lot of people have asked me, well, did you ever ask your dad? Did you ask him? And I won't even entertain the issues with that, but there are many, and it was horrible for me because I was like, oh my God, should I ask him? And maybe that would, and maybe I would then get an answer. Maybe I would then have proof. Maybe, I could get him to admit to it or something. So So yeah, on that one, just there's no one way of what to do, but to aim to be with yourself through it, to allow yourself to have a process around it, to allow yourself to be held and supported through what comes up by people or spaces that feel safe to you. Now, there are all sorts of different kinds of memories that can come up. So sometimes it might be like there's a story that I've shared on my blog where I kind of go through a memory that came to me in pieces. So first it was just kind of a emotional and body memory coming up that happened when I was in the shower with my baby when he was like 9 months old. And I just had this sense and this really intense emotional thing coming up. And I had a sense that I was having a memory come up, but there was no picture to it or words to it. And then later, I had some of the words come, and then later some more of the kind of picture of the memory. And so it can be that things come in pieces, and having dedicated space for your healing is really the best way I can say to explore and hold that journey for yourself if you feel to. And there can also be just a knowing. There can be a knowing that this is true and real, and I don't really know what the details are or the facts or whatever, but I trust your knowing. I trust in your innate sense of what happened to you. And I'm really passionate about creating a safe space to explore that from your body, your wisdom, not from suggesting things. You know, I had a therapist once tell me, I had several of the, I moved around quite a bit when I first started therapy, so I had several different therapists, and many of them were like happy to work with me, but suggested that I do EMDR. And the first EMDR therapist that I went to see said to me at the end of our first session, look, we can go down this path, but if we do, more stuff is probably going to come up. And it sounds to me like your dad also physically assaulted you. And I was shocked and horrified. And at the time I was in such deep denial that I was like, you're the worst. How dare you say that to me? That's not true. It was just psychological. And I just moved from New York, and I emailed my old therapist, and I was like, how dare she say that? And really, how dare she say that? That's absolutely unacceptable to ever imply that someone else may know about my experience and what's real and true. And I've had to process that and deal with the confusion of that and do I just think that this happened because this therapist said that to me all these years ago, and all of this questioning that came up because she said that to me. So unfortunately, there are a lot of therapists and practitioners out there who are not safe, particularly around repressed memories, and who have a lot of their own stuff that they haven't faced and dealt with. And for anyone who's faced any of that or is scared of any of that, I just want to acknowledge that and acknowledge that it's not an easy path to walk, and it's not a clear path to walk, and it's not a comfortable path to walk. But if it's one you choose, then there's stuff out there. There's magic and healing and connection and deeper wholeness and deeper expansive experiences of who you really are and how powerful you are and how tenacious and resilient and yeah, and I want to say it's worth it. And I also want to say that it doesn't always feel worth it, and that having those shitty experiences where people aren't safe and all that stuff isn't okay. And so I'm not, I'm never saying that it isn't, and that there can also be a lot of barriers to healing in the way. So I'm always up for chatting to people if there are barriers in the way, and connecting on ways that I can potentially work with you and help support you on your journey. And I think that's my repressed memory ramble to you today. Please let me know if you have any more questions or specific things you'd like me to talk about. And feel free to send me a DM and I'll reply when I can. My wild, tender, open, curious heart is here, beating, and I'm here breathing alongside of you, being fully human, having all ends of the spectrum of healing and living. And I believe in you, and you matter, and your experiences matter, and your stories matter, and your pain matters, and your confusion matters. May you have an abundance of space and support for whatever is true and real for you as you continue on your journey.